So, welcome back to the Renewables Podcast. Before we get into the conversation today, we just want to touch on some products from our sponsors at Proteus. And I'm going to start, Sam, with this SPD that they've got. Now, with these, you can mount them straight onto the buzz bar. You don't need to have an overcurrent protected device for them, which is super handy when we're limited for space. And we're trying to combine a smaller renewables board maybe with some EPS circuits. There's a lot of uses for these. They're absolutely fantastic. We've been using them for a good few months now, not that long out on the market. So yeah, absolutely fantastic that Proteus are looking after us as installers. And you've got another range of products over there.
I have, yeah. I've got the coloured Henley blocks, or 100 amp link blocks as some people call them. And gone are the days. I'm a bad contractor for using the black ones for so long, the Bakelite ones, because you try and knock one of these top knockouts out and it basically shatters the full thing. And I'm guilty enough to say that I didn't know these existed. So we started using these now, and they're absolutely fantastic. Solid. You've got the little blanks in here as well. So if you don't use one of the terminals, you can blank it off or just slide it out when you do need to use it. They're fantastic, and obviously they're all coloured as well, so that you know exactly the phase colour and the colour of the cable or the phase that's going into it. So yeah,
even the
pieces.
functional earth, or the Cranis collection as it is called, in pink. And they work with the 3mm Allen keys, which is consistent through the range of the mains tails isolators as well. So they've got us at heart, I think, as installers. You're not messing around with different screws and heads. Another fantastic range of equipment to tie in with the bi-directional RCBOs, which is obviously the leading product Proteus have got at the minute. And they've had that for a long time, which is really helping us again as renewables installers. And that's one of the reasons that we're so happy to be working with Proteus on this show. But without any further ado, let's get back to the chat.
Yeah, and we know how difficult it is to get the grid back with Spain and Portugal with the grid event that they had earlier this year. It takes a long time to get the grid back. It's not just like, oh, right, switch everything back on. Bringing the grid back online is not an easy task.
Yeah, big domino effect, wasn't it? And it's making sure that you don't have those sort of events, because when you are in this space of people sitting on one side of the fence and the other, and quite a lot of people on the fence about the whole net zero agenda, I feel like in the world we've seen a little bit of a back step in some thoughts around the whole net zero policies, through politics and everything like that. And I think when you do see those stories of the grid going down and it being very much pushed on that it's all because they've all gone to renewables and all this sort of stuff, I'm obviously massively biased. And, even if that is the root cause, it's kind of like, well, I'm pretty sure when they were, moving from horse-drawn carriages to internal combustion engines, there was probably some places where it all went wrong. And so it's obviously a really desperate issue for the people that are in that situation where the grid goes down. But it's kind of like the reality is we are going to find that this happens sometimes as we work out what we need to do and what we can't do. And I think as long as we learn from that and we try everything we can not to go down that route and protect the country from those sorts of blackouts, I think it is going to be unfortunately a bit of a byproduct of making such a huge transition from the fossil fuel world over into the electrified renewables world. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting journey, I think, that, and we're kind of in that time now. We're living in that transition period, which is really exciting. And it must be exciting to be kind of a major part of what I see and most of the installers see as kind of the central hub for all of that. The generation is one thing, but it's, as you mentioned right at the start of the podcast, it's okay generating that power, but what are we going to do with it? We're just going to turn it off if we can't handle it, or are we going to try and go, right, well, it generates this times a day, we can forecast roughly what it's going to generate, so actually having somewhere to put it if the country doesn't need it and the world doesn't need it, with an interconnectors and things like that. It's kind of it's the main middle part that renewable generation absolutely needs to be successful.
It was really, we had a fantastic little panel discussion last week at the Solar and Storage Show on our stand, on the ESA stand. We had our first stand there, and I got Phil Steele from Octopus, Raphael Hershey from Keele University, Rob Taylor, Give Energy, and myself. And we started having this discussion about green hydrogen. And it became this just really interesting sort of four-way discussion, because we were having this debate over how the efficiency of converting excess electricity into hydrogen and then reusing that through in thermal combustion plants or to generate electricity as you would a traditional sort of gas power station. And it was really interesting that Phil was talking very much about, it's not efficient, it's not great use. And I said, but at the minute, curtailment is 100% inefficient. You switch something off, you've got zero electric. So even if you produce something that is 50% efficient and you convert it to something you can use, then surely that is better. And we had this real great discussion that with some very clever people that we and myself, but we had this real good discussion over the different forms and ways we can store energy in the future. It's not just all about, like say, electrical batteries. There's different mechanisms. And I think it's going to be really interesting. I was discussing this yesterday. You think of the transition the country's got to get through. The gas network is not going to be sustainable in 20 years' time. As we electrify everything and switch off gas in our homes, as we move to heat pumps from gas boilers, then the gas network is not going to be sustainable. So at what point and who's going to make that decision to switch that off? But there's probably things like kilns for cement kilns and steel that need gas for the pure energy, because you've got to generate that heat. So will we get to the point of where we have a trunk network of hydrogen? Because I don't think hydrogen in homes is feasible. We know that's even more dangerous than natural gas because of the molecular part of hydrogen. So we got into this real debate over, we're probably going to see a real transition even in our gas network over the next 20 years to utilise green hydrogen and the remains of the gas we've got and the imports of gas we've got to really focus very much on industry and maybe mobile plant that is moving into the hydrogen space. So we've got a really exciting transition going on in our whole energy networks, not just electricity but gas as well.
I think it comes back to as well, Mark, what you're doing with your training centre and everything, and we hear about all the AI side of things and actually and even at the Labour Party conference, about trying to move from 50% of people getting a university degree to now 2/3 getting a university degree or a gold standard apprenticeship. All this sort of stuff we're talking about is people with their hands-on tools, with technical ability, and I think there's a real opportunity here for the right training to deliver the right people into what is a very exciting industry. And I get messages, a couple a week from people saying, I really want to get into this industry. I'm wanting to transfer from doing my web design job or my, whatever job it is, and I want to get my hands on this sort of stuff. And I think we're kind of, yes, we aren't doing a lot of manufacturing in this country now, but I think the ability to still be technical and do installations and be hands-on has never been, it's such a great opportunity to get your hands on stuff and learn a trade, and potentially even just new trades coming out of all of this, a hydrogen installation engineer or all this, conversion engineer from natural gas to hydrogen. All these opportunities there are, I think, with training centres like what you're bringing out, Mark, and hopefully others as well, delivering the right level of training that give people a really good understanding of this sort of stuff, I think is going to be absolutely critical and probably not forced on people in a negative way, but forced on people because the whole AI side of things potentially is taking some of those other jobs. So people are literally having to go, right, what can I do? I like making stuff, I can mess about with things like that. Actually, I'm going to get an apprenticeship in whatever that field is that interests them most. And I think getting the training right is everything, because it's that first step on that ladder. And if that's a wrong step and you don't get the right training, then it's very hard to recoup those skills and retrain after you've gone through that training before. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out.
And it is interesting. We've got these Institute of Technologies, I think there's 13 around the country where the government's invested in this and thinking about it. But I was in a meeting yesterday with a couple of members of DESNZ on the Clean Power team, Chris Stark's sort of mission control. But it was all very much focused on hardware. And I actually challenged them. I said, where's the work stream that thinks about the physical supply chain, distribution, logistics, installation? So it's all great, and we talk about all this wonderful thing of we want to promote manufacturing of this and manufacturing of that. But where is the physical going out and doing it, what you guys do, and work that I do with other companies? Because unless you're really trying to scale that and really bring more installers into this space, because if we are going to achieve the targets, we've got to have more people, and we know there's a lot of interest in getting into this space. And it's quite interesting. There's a real political division right now that's going on, and obviously we've seen, the Conservatives coming out and almost being anti-green and trying to match reform in this space. So we've got a real political division in this space, and it's one of the few areas where I think we've got a very strong. One party is saying that, and other parties are saying that. I think we all probably recognise the green agenda is the right agenda, because that's why we're all in it. But a lot of people want to get into this space. So how do we support them? And those whole careers is really important, and that links into other things I do outside of the ESA, because promoting that, and I know it's a big strong thing for you, Mark. But we've got to attract people into this sector. We've got to start thinking of the primary school children and secondary school children and people who've already started careers. My own son has recently come into the industry, and he'd been doing heritage plastering, that sort of conservation. But he's like, Dad, I want to get into this, because it is the future. He's seen the passion I have for it, and so he started into this sort of space now, which is brilliant. But many do want to do it, like you say, Sam.
I think as well with the whole, there is this political divide, but I think if the opportunity is shown, and there are many people that are training up and getting good, high-paid jobs in a conversion from natural gas to hydrogen, or in all these different things we've spoken about, these different industries and even new industries that come out of it, it would be very hard for these parties to argue against the green agenda if it's providing many high-paid jobs that are high-skilled, that are sought after around the world. Suddenly then the whole green part of it actually is then the second level for these parties that maybe don't believe in the whole green side of it. It's kind of like, if you can prove that you can get those high-paid jobs, high-skilled jobs that are very sought after, you can't really stand on the stage and say, I want to remove all of them. So I think that's kind of a really interesting angle that might protect that bit of the industry if we end up with a government that doesn't really share that whole ethos around the net zero target. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But it's another level of like the solar coaster. It's like the solar and battery coaster now.
Yeah.
It's very up and down.
The education side with government always lags behind the technology.
Yeah.
It's the same as it's always ever been, and it builds problems. We see that now with normal electrical work. We've had an influx of people who haven't received good training over the last 10, 20 years, and now we're trying to react to that and deal with it. We're still in that early adoption phase with all of this renewable technology. It's not just solar and batteries, but heat pumps, hydrogen, all this thing. We can put effective training in place to get those high-skilled workers and routes to become them as well for the young people out there going through education right now. With quite small investment, really. It doesn't take that much in the grand scheme of all the other big sums of money being chucked around behind net zero and things. And you just wonder why, if they're not getting that direction into government to make those changes, or if they've just got their heads in the sand around it, because the evidence of the last 20, 30 years around construction training is pretty clear. So it'd be interesting to see if those things are adjusted and changed, and we do get those opportunities for people. Because as you said, Sam, this is a massive opportunity for people of a working age over the next 30 years. It's the new industrial revolution, if you like, for want of a better explanation. I think that's what we're at the precipice of right now.
Absolutely, and even if it's not, training in physically on the tools out there in the world fitting this equipment, it's the design, it's the logistics, it's the the innovation around all of this. It sort of spiders out massively away from just physically putting solar panels and a battery system in someone's business or in their home. So I think getting that training is right. And just to touch on your point there, Mark, about the training in the normal electrical world, I think my view, mainly because of my experience after leaving school, was I think it became sort of in my age group, became expected that you were going to go to university. Certainly if you got decent grades at school, it's kind of like, what are you going to study at university? And that's literally the conversation that I had when I was coming to the end of my time at school, and it wasn't really pushed about, okay, you've got some decent results. Are you thinking more university or hands-on side of things? It was literally university, trades, university trades, all depending on what you got. And actually, I think what I thought was quite good about the last Labour conference, was about that refocus towards apprenticeships and things, because I think Keir even touched on it to say that some of these people would have been better served actually getting an apprenticeship and doing that. And I think now the realisation that probably was a mistake. It's probably well intentioned, but was maybe a bit of a mistake of trying to push more people just to hit the numbers of people at university, has maybe disadvantaged some people into what they ultimately would have really enjoyed and the country would have benefited from. Is actually having those skilled people that know how to install stuff. You know, when you think back across history in Great Britain, it's kind of all we're known for our innovation, our manufacturing and everything, and you know, some political parties now is trying to hark back to that, but actually it'd be really nice to imagine what that could be in the future through all of this sort of stuff, and go, you know, we're not going to be necessarily making T-shirts in this country. You know, you can't compete on price, but can we make the next level of battery technology through sodium, because we're an island, we're surrounded by salt, or the next level of AI and all this other sort of stuff. We're great at starting this stuff, but we're just really terrible at giving it the money to push forward. And the education piece there that you mentioned about it being lacking in the normal electrical world, my personal view is I think that's been a result of literally trying to force more people to go to university rather than maybe trying to put lots of focus on getting people into the trades world. And so the money maybe wasn't really allocated to the training. I don't know.
It's kind of funny, isn't it? Because there's always been those almost stereotypes, isn't it? You do well in your exams, therefore you're clever. You know, you'll go to university. You don't do well, you're not so bright. Go and do a trade. And I think we're seeing a shift now that people do recognise actually a trade is a really good route. You can earn a very good living, and we do need those very good apprenticeships. And I've been fortunate. I've worked in organisations that have had brilliant apprenticeship programmes, several years of apprenticeship programmes, so value them. And you know, they were always coveted. When I worked at Caterpillar, you know, the Caterpillar apprenticeship was a coveted thing, that people went through a 3-year apprenticeship to work on Caterpillar equipment, and it was seen in the industry as a real high profile. I think we've got to get to that level in our industry where having a good long-term apprenticeship, not a 3-month apprenticeship, and go, well, there you go, then you qualified, here's your screwdrivers, get on with it. You know, let's think about how we really raise that profile and those golden apprenticeships and those high level, because they're vital for what we're trying to achieve. It's no use everyone being at university and sat behind a desk and talking about these things. We've got to have those people that are prepared to roll the sleeves up and physically do it. And AI can't install yet a solar system and battery. We'll never say never, but you know, it's a long time away, I think, before we get robots out there installing it. So I think you're safe for a while.
Well, there are some days that I'm sure both of us wish we could. Those wet days.
It's like a robot.
Wet, windy days. Yeah, a robot can do this. It's welcome.
Yeah. Hasn't Elon sorted this out yet?
So true.
Optimus Prime, can start installing panels.
It'll come in the end, won't it? I mean, you see it in vehicle manufacturing where a lot of it's gone robotics, where it would have once been manpower. But I guess we have the difficulty that all of our sites are different, and moving the robots around it might not be quite as simple.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where, you know, AI is going to be really useful in a lot of places. May replace some jobs, as we saw in other industrial revolutions. Like, this is just a different type of industrial revolution. Yeah. And it's interesting that for the first time, and this is affecting the higher paid workers, or supposedly the higher paid workers first. You know, the design jobs, the jobs that are web, you know, all these design jobs that AI can spit out in seconds. We've done a podcast about app development and web development and all of that, haven't we, around what we've been creating for our businesses, and actually having a rethink about, okay, well, actually, the money is actually probably more in the on-site, the technical on-site work, design work, where you could leverage AI to help you, but you are still the one that's having to think of the intricacies of, okay, well, we'll have to fit that like that because of X, Y, and Z, so I'll tell the AI to design it that way. And I think it can be a massive tool to help productivity in those areas, but still, I do think we're a long way off the intricacies of taking a floorboard up and realising that pipe shouldn't be there and how you're going to get around it, and your multi-tool bit was about that far away from going through it. Like, there's a lot of intricacies there that, you know, a robot is just not going to know how to get around or not going to expect. And I think that's going to protect us for a little while.
Social media is driving people's interest in coming into trades. As we've all said at school, we weren't really told about it. You don't get any exposure to it unless someone in your family works in construction or trades. You're quite blind to what it's even like. But now as people like yourself and others are sharing their day-to-day of what they do, and maybe web developers are sat doom scrolling while they're coding or whatever it is they do, and they say, well, that looks a bit more interesting than what I do. Look at all them tools they get to use and the kind of kit they fit in and the change that they maybe having on people's energy bills and stuff. And it spikes their interest. So there's a lot of older people as well, I think, who are maybe 30, 40 years old who want to retrain into those kind of sectors from seeing that content and having that awareness. So we need to try and enable routes for those people as well who want to retrain, because it is sort of siloed in a way through apprenticeships. And people who've got more experience and have got families and need the salary to retrain. So we need to look at that as well. I think that we're not shutting those people out. You've had people come into your business, Sam, and I've had people come through mine who haven't gone through a normal apprenticeship. They are older retrainees. I think that's an area for government to open up a bit more as well and ensure that they get the good quality training they need to be effectively skilled in the role they're going to do, but also an opportunity to get there in the end.
It's going to be vital for the ones that do unfortunately lose their jobs in that area, because it's, if you're 18 to 25, you can quite feasibly go through like a normal quote unquote apprenticeship route. But if you are kind of above that, you're kind of into the adult retraining area, and it's a bit of a wilderness, really. I know through taking two people through that in the business, it's kind of a little bit like, they're sat in the classrooms with a lot of 18-year-olds, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's you're in a different headspace when you're that age. You're taking it a lot more, get in trouble, but you're taking it a lot more seriously because you've got maybe a family behind you that needs you to be successful. And so yeah, it's a really interesting. It just all unravels, doesn't it? The more you think about it.
There's so much for us to do and tackle as a country and as individuals in the industry, because we saw when there's this big, I suppose, government push, and we saw it with the previous government for apprenticeships. You get these companies set up that do these sheep dip apprenticeships that have no real value. So how do you make those quality and involving small businesses? Because it's much more valuable for guys like yourself in smaller businesses who can train one or two a year or one every 2 years or something to get into a level, than sheep dip 30 in a classroom and go, right, you've done an apprenticeship in plumbing, but they've never seen a site in their life, and therefore it's of no real value. And I think a lot of these companies were making a lot of money on the back of so-called mass apprenticeship schemes. So I think it's really difficult, again, to make sure it's quality over quantity as much of this, because you can't just sheep dip apprenticeships. To make them valid and worthwhile and produce the right people at the end who've got the right skills, the right knowledge, the right experience, that go, right, now I'm capable of doing this myself, because of the wisdom I've been shared and that's been passed on by people like yourself who've done this for a number of years.
We sort of have that situation in the electrical industry right now because there isn't enough apprenticeship places, because lots of small employers have been squeezed by the national minimum wage rises and all of the other extra cost burden they're taking on board. And we have classrooms full of level 2 and level 3 full-time students who haven't really got any prospect of getting work experience and completing their training, and that's all taxpayer funded.
Yeah.
So you're looking at that thinking, well, why don't the government do something to allocate some of that funding towards smaller employers to enable them to take them on? Because in the end, the smaller employers get the benefits, their businesses grow and scale, the people going through that training route get high-skilled, decent careers out of it. It seems like a misuse of funds just looking at it from afar. I mean, I don't know how all the policy development around that works.
There's just so much to tackle. That's the reality. We published our first newsletter a couple of months back, and there's 30 different pieces of legislation ongoing at the moment in terms of our sector. I've probably never known so much work going on. And so just, I suppose, to defend the government a little bit in the moment, it's probably the most progressive for our industry. But there's huge areas they're not thinking about, like, say, the installation side. It was just yesterday with the Clean Power team. It just manifests itself, and I called it out. You're not thinking about this, but is it wrong to criticise the bits they don't think about when they're trying to think about so many other things? Which comes back, hopefully the Energy Storage Association can help and keep raising these as we've done, which is part of what we're doing and trying to promote the membership. And the more people can get involved, then the louder our voice can be, and it's amplifying that voice to represent as much as we can.
So mentioning that then from the installer side of things, how can we support you? You're saying you want to support it's the things we can do to get involved with what you're doing to back you up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously being associate members and getting there, it's like everything. I'm doing this, as I mentioned before, I don't want to labour the fact, but I'm doing this voluntary as well, but I want to recruit more people to do it. So the more members we can sign up, and small companies, we have an associate membership that gets the information and is able to not necessarily be fully active in it, because it is how many things you can do, but the more members we can sign up, and it has been a big drive to attract members, then the more resource we can put into it, because there is only so much time that we've all got in any aspect of what we do. So if anyone is interested in joining, then on the ESA-UK.org website, there's all the different membership levels, but we try and, for small businesses, we have an associate membership that's £1,000 a year, which is still a lot of money, I know, but hopefully that there's value in that for a number of organisations, and so that's a great thing. But we're trying to obviously get manufacturers and groups together as well that represent. But I'll keep representing as much as I can, irrespective.
I'll put a link in the show notes for anyone to go off and explore that website, because I think there's a fair old bit of information on there already. So if you want to find out more on that, you can do. I think we've given the ESA some really good coverage there, Jason. But I want to hear a little bit more about the other hats you're wearing before we end our chat, because you must be making a living somewhere if you're not getting paid doing your work at the ESA.
And so setting up as I suppose an independent consultant was really nice. I guess when I announced that I was leaving Give, I was approached by a couple of people immediately saying, can I help them in their businesses in the clean power space? So I was able to start doing that. So I do a few days a month for HDM, the wholesaler, because obviously I've got wholesale experience. So helping Adam and Dan to grow their business, which is great, and do some mentoring and coaching of the senior team as well, but really help develop the strategy for those guys. Solarport of the ground mount system, another great British brand and company, doing work with them a couple of days a month. And who else pays me to do some SMS?
You've got to say them all now.
I know, yeah. SMS. I do a couple of days a month with there, but I think I've been really fortunate in the businesses I've done, and so I'm financially I'm in a strong place. So what I've been really able to do is do, I suppose, what's my passion, and this was the key thing for me. When I left Give Energy, I wasn't interested in doing another full-time role. I was interested in doing the things that really make a difference. So the ESA, I work with Primary Engineer, which is a charity focused on primary school children. I was working with them in Give Energy, still working with them now. I work with the University of Staffordshire to help entrepreneurs. I work with Staffordshire Community Energy Trust as a board advisor. Yes, I wear many different hats. It was like, I think I was at the Soul and Story show, represented, I think, any one time 6 different entities. Some pay me, some don't. But I think what's really important to me is the education side, the energy poverty side, which is vital to tackle. So I think the work that the likes of SMS are doing, with their METIS program, working with housing associations to bring technology to social housing and open up that technology, is brilliant. So I'm trying to work with companies that align with my values and what I want to try and tackle. Obviously, support this industry, support the UK element of this industry, tackle energy poverty, and really the education part. It's always been a real passion of mine. So so they're the sort of things, and try and utilise my experience of high growth industries, of a number of different industries I've worked in, and the experience I've got to help others and develop. So if I can earn a bit of money along the way with thanks to the likes of HDM and Solarport and SMS who do pay me for my advice, and that allows me to provide advice free of charge to others, but like I say, I'm only interested in working on on what's really passionate. I was actually approached about a very high paid job in sort of in the industry, and it was I went through it with the recruiter, and it's like it's this and it's this and it's this. And I was like, there's just no purpose to it. It's just like making money, and yeah, money is important, but that's not my driver. And it's about what I can do to effect change and try and make a difference in the smallest possible way.
Nice to get to that point, I suppose. Yeah,
and
nice
I'm very fortunate, and I'm very fortunate, and money has given me freedom. I did very well when we sold Seagen. I was a minor shareholder, so that really set me up financially to live a very modest lifestyle without necessarily working. A very modest lifestyle. But if I want to have a better lifestyle, then I've got to still do a little bit. But it gives me the security behind me that enables me to do as much as I can for good. Without sounding too cheesy.
I think you need that sometimes with these organisations, though, because you need a lot of this stuff, as we've discussed in this hour-long section, unless it gets split up, is that there's so much going on that if you're also trying to run a business and have all these other draws of your time, you've only got so much mental capacity. So you kind of have to have that bit of space in your mind. I know you're wearing a few different hats, but if you're able to give yourself that headspace to really seriously think about that, that's effectively what these associations, I suppose, have to have. They have to have that kind of mind hive of people in there that are focusing on this stuff to actually really think through the problems. It's okay us doing this podcast, Mark, every week, but before and after this, we are chatting about the day jobs and everything. So you do need these sort of places to really think about the problems, have the right connections, and trying to affect that change. And it sounds like you're well on your way for that. My final question was, where do you want to kind of, it's a bit of like an interview question, I thought, but where do you kind of see the association going over the next few years? Are you looking to really increase the membership, or is it of kind of installers, or is it more about getting manufacturers on board, and what's the kind of target for over the next 2 or 3 years then?
I suppose in the terms of membership, it's very much around widening and having as much diversification in the membership as possible. We've got logistics companies, we've got distribution companies, we've got academic, we've got energy companies, we've got manufacturers and different technology manufacturers, and so then working with the other trade bodies to try and to expand that. So we're all working and talking in the same language. I was with Sonia Dunlop last night on the Global Solar Council about how we can influence this at a global level, because they're starting to get into the idea of storage. So the more we can all collaborate and work together and be singing the same message consistently around the world is the ultimate, but my focus is very much the UK. So really promoting that, getting the technology as just seen as standard. It's no longer seen as a nice to have, it's essential that we have all legislation pointing in the direction of the future state that we know we need. So the future home standard must include things like energy storage. We have simpler policies like salary sacrifice that includes renewable technologies, not just an EV. So we make it easier for everybody to access the technology. It is seen as a standard form. And then we can promote the new technologies. So driving membership just enables it to happen faster because it creates money, and everything does ultimately need money. So the more we can drive the membership, the more we can do. But the ultimate aim is that we've created an ecosystem that works for all situations with the grid and all types of generation that's available, and the energy generation. So it's become the norm, and then we can start to really think about the next generation. What comes next? How can we support new emerging technologies both for the UK and then around the world, because it's really important. And then you've got those offshoots of bringing younger people through and the training and future proofing the industry. So getting it right for now, and then starting to future proof it for 10, 20 years when hopefully I can retire and do nothing. I'd be bored though. I don't know what I'd do with myself.
I think that this is very much the right person at the right time, Jason. I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit here for what you've got going in the short time frame you have. What you've achieved with these brands, getting behind it, and the conversations you're already having in government. I think full credit to you, and it shows it's much needed. It's definitely something that I'm going to look into with the associate membership in my business to see if we can help support you as well. And for other brands out there or people of industry who may be watching this, and it might be the first time you're hearing about the ESA, do get in touch with Jason. So I know we have people from the IET, the ECA, NAPIC, the NICL watching this. These are the kind of conversations you need to be having. And if there are any other brands out there who want to get behind the ESA and see if you can affect the right changes, it's a conduit for that to happen, isn't it, into central government. And, full credit to you, massive admiration for what you've done, Jason. I think it's great.
Yeah, same here. And I think we've given that a really good going over. So thanks very much for coming in. And thanks everyone for watching and listening. And if you do have any questions about the ESA or about this podcast, then leave them in the comments. If you haven't already liked and subscribed and all of that, then head over to YouTube or onto Spotify, and you can do that. As well, we've got a membership scheme as well that allows you to get episodes that come out a week early. So you can head over to Spotify and sign up to that as well. But once again, thanks very much for supporting us and watching and listening to the channel. Thanks very much. We'll see you on the next one.